Did you know that Dracula is the most portrayed character in popular culture? His pale, bloodthirsty mug has appeared in over 540 films, countless books, comics, and TV series, inspiring countless other vampire stories and franchises. So no matter how many times we kill him off, he keeps rising from the dead, stronger and more popular than ever. And I'm here to tell you why. Bram Stoker's Dracula is the story of a man, John Harker, who travels to Count Dracula's castle in Transylvania to help him purchase a house near London. Dracula is seen shrouded in darkness and described as more animal than man, and the Count traps Harker in the castle while he journeys to London to bring a plague of death on modern society. He targets Harker's wife-to-be, Mina, the epitome of virtue and purity, and her friend Lucy, who is euphemistically described as, quote, having a man's brain when it comes to her relationships with men. Dracula takes advantage of both women, tainting their purity. Dracula soon encounters Van Helsing, who, along with a band of hunters, eventually chases him back to Eastern Europe, where they vanquish him by stabbing him in the heart. Despite Dracula only reaching moderate success in Stoker's time, his themes of the societal fears of, quote, the foreign other, someone noticeably different than us, and female autonomy end up being a through line across all iterations to follow. They will, however, evolve with the times, but we'll get to that later. The first film adaptation was Nosferatu, a symphony of horror in 1922. This film, being an unauthorized adaptation, changed the names of all the characters, like Dracula to Nosferatu, and set most of the plot in Germany as opposed to England. However, it kept the rest of the story largely intact, especially the grotesqueness of the vampire and his overt, creepy sexuality in the face of the heroine's purity. Probably the biggest difference is that Ellen, the Mina character, sacrifices herself to destroy Nosferatu, redeeming herself after falling from grace. Her redemption was important at the time to keep her sympathetic to the audience. Nosferatu symbolized two popular fears of the time. One, the flood of new ideas coming into Germany from other parts of the world, and turning away from the values of the church. They feared that if women embraced their sexual agency, that, quote, the plague will fall.
My God. Plague.
Nasty Nosferatu, exit stage left. Enter the new hotness, Bela Lugosi's Dracula.
I bid you welcome.
In 1931, Bela Lugosi's handsome, smooth-talking Dracula changed the game in multiple ways. One, he wasn't some old, decrepit ghoul anymore. Now he was sexy, rich, and seductive, capable of corrupting the morality of England's youth on looks and status alone. Controlling their minds didn't hurt either.
And after you deliver the message, you will remember nothing. I now say, obey.
So not only did he drive the women crazy, but the men as well.
You will keep your promise when we get to London, won't you, Master?
2. Dracula's bite now created a sexual awakening to those bitten.
I love the night. That's the only time I feel really alive.
So with all these new additions to the vampire repertoire, being a vampire seemed pretty cool all of a sudden, making the idea of being turned into a blood-sucking immortal almost enticing. This trend of leaning into Dracula as a sexual icon was elevated even further by the Hammer horror Dracula films starring the too cool for school Christopher Lee.
Mr. Harker, I'm glad that you've arrived safely.
He made the Bela Lugosi Dracula look like a Puritan. Lee was more human than Nosferatu, but more animal than Lugosi. I mean, look at him with those fangs covered in blood and snarling at everyone, yet he was still irresistible to those around him. Not only did they lean into Dracula's overt sexuality, but the women were no longer symbols of purity. Now, they wanted Dracula's bite. This is why Christopher Lee's Dracula became so popular that he made 9 Dracula films. 9. And the Dracula costume you're probably gonna buy at the store this Halloween is based on this Dracula instead of this one. Still a representation of the other, Dracula was no longer the symbol of something unwanted, signifying a major paradigm shift in modern society around the acceptance of female autonomy as opposed to the male-dominated society fearing it. Jump forward to Bram Stoker's Dracula in 1992, casting master thespian, nope, not him, Gary Oldman as the titular character. Francis Ford Coppola attempted to ground Dracula back in its original text and elevate it once more. He made one key change in his version that humanized Dracula like never before. And it wasn't changing Jonathan Harker from British to whatever accent this is.
Are the owner of Carfax Abbey at Purfleet,
Congratulations.
Coppola placed Mina's soul in the bride of Dracula from before he became a vampire, and that Mina dies tragically before they could fully realize their love. So her soul, now in modern day Mina, I can only imagine Coppola in the pitch room talking to the producers about this. It's insanely complicated. So old Mina's soul, now in modern day Mina, established a cosmic love connection between Dracula and Mina that spanned centuries.
I know you. I have crossed oceans of time to find you.
Coppola created a love story that rivaled that of her and Harker, making him even more human and relatable to the audience. So this makes their connection not only sexual, but cosmically romantic. And since the 80s made it cool to be virtuous again, they needed that romantic element to justify the sexuality. And there is plenty of sexuality in this film. And finally, we come to Eggers' Nosferatu. Eggers, in my opinion, cherry picks the best elements of all the films to create the ultimate modern Dracula film.
The Murnau film, unlike other Dracula versions, the female protagonist by the final act becomes the heroine. Mm-hmm. You see the longing, you see the sensuality and the eroticism in the Murnau film. I really believe that. And Murnau and Gallienne, the screenwriter, call Ellen a somnambulist. And sleepwalkers in the 19th century were thought, even by medical professionals, many medical professionals, to have like an insight, like a view, a grasp, like an antenna into another realm.
Her pupil is expanded. It does not contract naturally to light.
Impossible.
A second sight. She is no longer here.
So you have like this person who has this like deep innate understanding of the shadow side of the world, and she has no language for it, and she's not in an environment that can cultivate this kind of power and foresight that she has. So, and instead she's misunderstood, she's, marginalized, she's called hysterical, she's called melancholic, and they're literally tying her to the bed, and you see her physically struggling with the stuff that's inside her in a way that I think is like pretty powerful in Lily Rose Depp's performance. And the one person, until she meets this lovely man who she's able to find a connection with to express this part of her, is unfortunately this demon lover, this vampire, this predator.
I sought company. I sought tenderness, and I called out. Hear my call.
Three fears that continue to linger in our society: the fear of mortality, the fear of the foreign other, and the fear of female autonomy in the face of religion. And even though our society has evolved over the last 130 years, so have our fears. And how Dracula embodies those fears are what I believe to be the most alluring aspects of the modern Dracula, and what keeps him coming back over and over and over again in his various forms.
He isn't going to die!
Because for us humans, struggling with the daily existential crisis of our own mortality, what's more alluring than the option to cheat death and cash in on the promise of an eternal life of decadence, pleasure, and love?
Join me in eternal life.
Thanks for watching. Drop your favorite Dracula film in the comments and let us know if we left anything out. See you next week on How It Hits.